All right, friends, welcome back to a very special stream of Dr. J Radio Live. Of course, I'm your host, Dr. J, broadcasting alone today. No guests, that's right, because we're going to be talking about something that I promised you 2 months ago, which is how to get out of any infraction in the United States. Particularly, this works extremely well in large cities. I have yet to try it in a small city, meaning like where I skydive. Most areas are 6,000, 10,000 residents. So I don't know how it will go there, but give it a shot. What's the worst that can happen? You pay the fucking ticket, big deal, because you're already going to be paying the ticket unless you follow my advice, or if you hire one of those ticket firms, meaning a low life, not I don't want to degrade the lawyer, a small firm that doesn't charge much to essentially represent you in court when dealing with traffic tickets, cell phone tickets, all of that even counts. And depending on what state you're in, by the way, this also even applies for weed tickets. Now, if you are in a state where it's a misdemeanor, unfortunately, you're going to be prosecuted by the city attorney. If you ever wonder what the difference is between the city attorney and the district attorney only prosecutes felonies. That's it. A city attorney prosecutes not just misdemeanors, and they only prosecute misdemeanors, but they also are the ones that work with the mayor to, for instance, in Los Angeles, you may have, many of you who don't live in Los Angeles have heard of the large gang problem we've been facing for decades. Well, it was our city attorney that was the one who went to court and essentially got a what is the proper term? It's slipping out of my fucking brain right now. It's not a restraining order. It's essentially a court order that would prohibit gang members from, say, for instance, loitering together, because then they could be prosecuted. Things like that. The word will come to me at the end of this. Okay, so let's start first with this. All right. So you're driving, maybe you're going 20, 30 miles per over the limit. And by the way, don't ever go 100 miles an hour or over that, because then you're pushed over into not just an infraction, but a felony for reckless driving. This doesn't cover reckless driving. So let's just say you're in a 45 mile per hour zone, you're going 70 miles per hour, and a cop pulls you over. Let me pull a picture here of a cop, also known as a pig, or whatever the fuck you want to call him. So here you are, dealing with the cop. He asks you for your license and registration, etc., etc., etc. And also, one more thing. Every time a cop wants to search your car, they don't say, "Can I search your car?" They always say it in this particular way. That way you're kind of trapped. They say, "You don't mind if we search your car, do you?" Always say no. Fuck you guys. Just say fuck them. Fuck them. You don't have to say fuck you to their face. Just say it in your mind, but stand your ground. Get them to call their captain over, their supervisor, and make their asses go to a judge. Get a warrant to open your trunk and search your car. Fuck with them. Why not? I mean, it's a free country. If you don't have anything to hide, if you're not traveling with in California, if you got a gun on you, well, then you're pretty fucked. If you got any illegal drugs on you, then it's probably not a good idea to let them search you. But regardless, back to the ticket. So you're pulled over for suspicious a speeding ticket, right? It could even be a cell phone ticket. I know, at least in California, I'm sure in other states at this point, you can't use a cell phone while driving. You can't at least hold it anymore. So obviously, after you go through this bullshit of getting your license and registration, writes the ticket. Always be polite. I always get, and I always hear younger people saying, "Oh, I know my rights. I know my rights." You know what, guys? It doesn't matter what you think you know. On the streets, the cops own you. They could arrest you on a baseless charge. You will go spend the night in jail. If it's a weekend, you're going to spend Friday, Saturday, Sunday. If it's a holiday Monday, you won't even get arraigned till Tuesday. Only when you get to arraignment will the case get thrown out. But in the meantime, they will have a chance to fuck with you. So always remain polite in front of the police. Essentially, do as they say. If you feel like allowing them to search your car and not be held up for a couple hours until they get their supervisors there, try to talk you into letting them search your car so that you could leave. Or if you really want to fuck with them until they come, with a warrant, then that's a different story. But assuming you just want to get them out of your hair and you want to move on with the rest of your day, let them write you the ticket, sign it. Don't not sign it, because they're not going to let you leave if you don't sign it. And then what you need to do, these are very important, because this is what normally people would charge money for. So this is very important that you all listen to me. Okay, so I mentioned not to fight. Get your fucking ticket. Now, step number 1. The moment you get your ticket, look to see what date you're supposed to appear in court. In Los Angeles, for instance, you're allowed to delay your court appearance online for the first time, and it has to be at least 10 business days prior to your appearance. So I personally wait at least 12 business days, because you have to factor in holidays, and I got screwed one time over this, but it ended up working for me. And just so you all know, I have not been convicted of a ticket since I was 18. So it wasn't necessarily law school that taught me this. It was just my own instinct and intellect and experience that I realized how to work the system. So and like I said, I know a lot of my friends from law school who don't want to be dealing with pedophiles and murderers or sit in an office working 80 hours a week all day. So their whole practice is about this, doing exactly what I'm about to tell you. So don't immediately go online and move your date. Wait until 12 business days before, or 16 days, regular days before. That way you count weekends. And then right before so for instance, let's just say, okay, today is, what is it? It is January 5th. So your ticket says you must appear by, say, March 20th, okay? So by March, say March 5th, or March 4th, go online, okay? Push your appearance back as far as possible. I mean, it doesn't matter if you can't make it that day, which you're going to have to at some point, but push it as far as possible. Literally, take the last date they offer you. Now, you're allowed to change it one more time. The second time, though, you can't change it online. You have to go to the clerk in the courthouse. Wait again, at least 12 days. If there's a bunch of holidays, then factor those in. Do not make the mistake of waiting till the 10th day, because then you're fucked. Wait. Make sure you factor in the holidays, etc. That's why I say 12 business days or 16 regular days to factor in the weekends. So once you've already delayed the ticket to the furthest day out, wait till it's 16 regular days, 12 business days prior to that appearance. Go into the courthouse, see the clerk of the courthouse which you're supposed to appear in, meaning the judge. The judge you're supposed to appear in. Go to the clerk, change the date again. Again, do the same thing as you did prior to this, which is take the farthest date out there. Now, what's this going to do once you change the date twice? Well, from the time you were written the ticket to the time you finally end up showing up in court, chances are, if you follow my advice, you're going to have minimum a year pass by. Literally, from the time you were written a ticket to the time you're supposed to appear after you've delayed it twice. And depending on your jurisdiction, if you could delay it more, just delay it as far as possible. Most of the time here in LA, because we're so freaking full, By the time I end up getting up to the judge, it's 18 months, a year and a half after I've written the ticket. So the day you're supposed to go to court, finally, after you can't delay it any further, go to court outside the department and the floor, the actual courtroom that you're going to be walking in. What you do is you look outside on the door or next to the door, and that contains all the names of the defendants that are supposed to appear that day. Find your name, then follow the line across to see who is the officer, unless you remember who the officer was who wrote you the ticket. Then, once you see the officer's name, go through the entire paper with all the other defendants that day and see if the officer's name appears there again. Because generally, when they write you a ticket the first time, they've been writing tickets all day, maybe all week, for that particular date. So cops will come in to literally deal with 10, 15, 20 or more tickets that day. That's why you want to keep delaying it. And if your cop is only going to be there for you, guess what, folks? Police departments value the cop's time to the point that they don't want to let them go lose half a day in court, wear a suit instead of their uniform, to go in there to be the witness against you. And guess what's going to happen? Your case is dropped. There, boom. I just saved each of you $200 that you would have been paid, at least $200, for any time you would have had a ticket. Now, another way you could do this, I'll give you an example. In California, and I don't recommend doing this because it's hit or miss. You really don't know what the cops have done as far as properly. So let me give you an example. Before I started doing this, back when I was 17, I of course, before I was even a lawyer, I was acting like a lawyer, a little arrogant ass at the time, I mean, obviously you learn a lot when you get older and you're more humble, but at the time I was like, I'm going to beat these motherfuckers. So I found their laws on their guns, on their traffic guns, right? And in California, at least, they have to be calibrated every 18 months. So what I did is I just printed out what I found online about the fact that in California that it requires that cops have their guns, traffic guns, calibrated every 18 months. And before I use the initial advice I gave you, every speeding ticket I got off, you would be surprised. Not a single officer had their traffic gun or radar gun calibrated in under. Usually within 3 years they haven't even done it. So that's the other way, which is something you may end up use if you're like in a small shit town like where I skydive in, like Lake Elsinore or Paris Valley or Taft. Those are the three main drop zones I go to, and they're very, very tiny populations, by the way. There's an interesting story I could tell you about that, but I don't necessarily think it's proper right now, unless you guys want to hear me. However, I do have to worry about the state bar, because if they knew about this, then they'd probably fuck with me a little bit, because it does involve illegal drugs. So anyhow, that's how you get out of the tickets. Take the ticket, be polite with the cop just so you can just get the fuck out of there. Delay your first appearance to as far as possible, then online. Then go into the courthouse, delay it again as far as possible, and then you've created enough time to where chances are the time you're supposed to appear, the cop will not appear. Case dismissed, you're free. It has been 23 years since I've been prosecuted and lost a traffic ticket. Now, being a little older now that I recently turned 40, I'm not, the super speeder that I used to be. And generally, I I haven't even received a ticket in about a decade. But that doesn't mean this doesn't work, because I've shown all my friends, and I promise you, in the city of Los Angeles, with the many millions that we have, not a single person has ever been convicted of a traffic ticket or a cell phone ticket. Or in California, before recreational marijuana was available, it was an infraction. It was a misdemeanor in the 90s, but ever since it became medically available in 96, when the law was passed for medical cannabis, then obviously it was no longer a misdemeanor. At that point, it was just an infraction. So this did work at the time for that too. So now that we covered those two stories of how to get out of it, follow the first one that I told you about delaying it, and I promise you it will work. Now, again, like I said, this is valuable information. Feel free to share it to your friends, or just turn them back to this video. Now, I'll stay on for a few more minutes, and you guys can ask me whatever the fuck you want. Oh, please, I'm also going to be demonetized very soon. Super chat it up. I need to change something drastically, because I'm going to have to pull the plug at some point fairly soon unless things change. I do need a couple volunteers who are very good at video editing, because I have a few things that I could change. For instance, I'll keep doing the live streams, but instead of keeping the entire video on afterwards so you could hear it for free, realistically, I'm going to have to charge. So I'll probably remove all my videos, other than maybe the first 10-15 minutes of them, and then put them on Patreon or my website or something like that. That way I can have something to make sure I'm not demonetized. And I have a couple volunteers that work for me that are so loyal, they deserve to get paid at some point. Now, the break even for this show doesn't even include for me making $1. And you know what? That's okay. Just break it fucking even. That's all I ask. So, now, let me see if I still have the phone number handy. You could either call me right now, or you can write me whatever you want to ask. So let me get you the phone number if you feel like calling. Let me see which one it is. No, that's my old Skype number. Here it is. Let me copy and paste it for you into the chat. Now, super chat it up while we're waiting. Call me or ask away before I end this stream. By the way, tomorrow I have my good friend John Carmen of the retired from the Secret Service back on, so it'll be an interesting conversation. Ha! Right on! Yeah! Kicking the back in OC. Fuck yeah, thank you for your super chat. You just are very helpful for that. Anyone have anything you'd like to ask or call? Let's find out. And all right, I'll probably have to remove this video if you want to hear the story, because it's very telling about who I was 15 years ago. Okay, Skydive Taft, right? Skydive Taft is, like I said, a shit town. It's mostly a meth town, really. And the people, I've been robbed there. I've been like, it's a very scary place. When people are on meth, I mean, they're fucking scary. Their eyes are just really super paranoid. And I've been robbed at knife point, gun point, etc. Anyway, from the drop zone to the hotel, it's a 400-foot drive in a straight line. There are usually no more cars after, say, midnight, because after we're done skydiving, generally what we do is we stay at the drop zone and drink until the middle of the night, and then some people crash there, some people crash in their car. I usually got a shit hotel and stayed there. Well, that particular day, a good friend of mine brought some great cocaine, and another friend of mine had morphine pills, by the way. And I was drinking, smoking Cuban cigars. And now, if you know the anatomy of drugs, then you do know that coke and meth, what they do is they dilate your pupils. You're going to look like you just don't have a color to your eyes, just giant black eyes. However, if you know anything about opiates, opium, heroin, morphine, oxycodone, hydrocodone, whatever it may be, your eyes stay normal. So I was drinking at the drop zone, doing lines of coke with my friends, and taking morphine pills at the time. This is long before I got into my car wreck, so I wasn't really even prescribed them at the time. This was more like for fun and an experimenting time. So I wasn't as drunk because I've been doing the coke, and I didn't look like I was fucked up on coke because the morphine balanced me out. And I'd done just enough coke to where I was no longer drunk, although I reeked of it. This is going to be a really funny story, I promise you. So, what happened was everyone was crashing out, and it was time for me to make that whopping 400-foot drive. And why didn't I just walk? Why? Because I have thousands of dollars of gear in my trunk. I'm not going to leave it unattended. I got my rig that, if anyone, I know Justin T's a skydiver, then you should know that a brand new parachute, which contains 4 components, is about $7,000. And then you add in all your other gear, altimeter. I have, an audio altimeter in my helmet. I have a digital altimeter for my wrist. I have my analog altimeter on my chest strap. I mean, it's just all my gear. So I wanted to make sure I made it to the hotel and brought this stuff in. Well, the fucking cops in Taft, because I am not a resident, they immediately pulled me over. Not because I was speeding, not because I was acting drunk, not because I was like swerving, nothing. I mean, I was literally going 20 miles an hour in a 35-mile-an-hour zone to go in one fucking straight line for 400 feet. Immediately, as soon as I crossed that main highway, it's actually just a street, a one-lane street on either side, but it's considered a highway on its way to Bakersfield from Taft. Once I crossed that onto Main Street, where the hotel was, like I said, a straight line, I got pulled over. Go figure. Of course, no reason. And I was smoking a Cuban cigar. The first thing they do is come up to me and they said, "Do you mind putting that out?" And I said, "It's a Cuban." And they said, "Do you want us to arrest you for it?" And of course I put it out. Then they said, "Have you had anything to drink tonight?" Of course I said no. Never, ever, ever admit to cops any wrongdoing. Let them figure it out for themselves. Even if you're blatantly lying to them, they cannot prosecute you for lying, just so you know. So you never want to admit that you're drinking, because then they're going to assume that you're over the limit. So they obviously smelled alcohol in my breath, and because I'd been doing coke and morphine, my eyes looked completely regular, and I had been more sober because of the coke. So anyhow, they asked me to step out of the vehicle to search whatever. Then they said, "We need you to walk in a straight line." Well, I was tipsy. So this is what I said. Yeah, exactly, Venom Daniels. Don't ever admit anything. Fuck them. Let them do their job. Make them work for their taxpayer money. Make them work as hard as possible. Never admit anything. Let them do their own work. And many times cops are stupid and will just not see something in plain sight. Anyway, so they asked me to step out of the car and do, the typical drunk test, walk in a straight line. And so, because I was tipsy, I told them I have bad knees. I can't do that. So, next step, they said, "We need you to blow." I said, "I have asthma. I can't blow." They forced me. They kept putting up to me. They said, "You have to blow." I pretended I was, blowing hard, but I barely blew. I purposely wanted to make sure that my alcohol did not register, because I knew that I was at minimum 0.08. So then they, handcuffed me. They detained me. They didn't arrest me because there was no basis at the time yet. They had to bring me down to the station in Taft to fire up the machine, the breathalyzer that's at the station, which can take even the smallest amount of breath and figure it out. Now, here's the coolest part. This is why I did exactly what I was doing. When I got there, by the way, they were such assholes. They wouldn't let me piss because I really had to go. I mean, like I said, I've been drinking, right? And so what I did was I kept asking him, and these motherfuckers kept me in cuffs and said, just, you're going to have to piss on yourself. I was so mad. Anyway, from the time they pulled me over to the time I had to use the breathalyzer at the station because I purposely used some stall tactics. Yeah, saying I had asthma, and yet I had no inhaler. Saying I had bad knees, and yet I could walk, but I couldn't walk in a straight line. It was really funny at the end of the story when I got to tell everyone this, because another friend that night sadly did get caught for drunk walking. Get that, drunk walking. Apparently in certain areas you can't even be in public drunk. Public intoxication is what he was thrown in the tank for. So by the time I had to blow in this stronger machine, I purposely dragged 45 minutes to go out. And I knew that no matter what, my alcohol level would have dropped. Whether it was 0.12, whatever it was, in that 45 minutes, by the time these fuckers tested me from that breathalyzer at the station, I blew a 0.07. Now, if I blew a 0.07 45 minutes later, don't you think that 45 minutes earlier I probably would have blown a 0.08, 0.09, maybe a 0.10? Yeah, absolutely. So I got away from a DUI, and to this day I've never had a DUI, knock on wood. Now, I don't really drink anymore. I don't party the way I did when I was 25. So if I don't even know any more drug dealers. So if you guys know any, then let me know. The closest I know to drug dealers are the weed shops, because the shit's so legal here you could deliver it from an app. Okay, now that I have my main vice, the only drug I really care about, which is tobacco. No, it's not weed. I actually, surprisingly, I know you guys think I smoke a lot of weed. I really actually don't. I smoke maybe a joint every other week, once a month, sometimes a couple months. I don't really need to. Cigarettes are my biggest vice. I could literally live with no drugs and just cigarettes and water for the rest of my life, and I'll be happy. It'll be a boring life, but at least I got cigarettes. Okay, let's check out the chat. Now that I got my cigarette going, let me grab another image for you. And if you guys want to call, just please call. Now's the time. Oh, here, let me show you this. I think I might have mentioned this before. This is pretty scary. Google claims quantum supremacy. Check this out. When Google finally created this quantum computer, they decided to test it by giving a math problem that would have taken the world's fastest, most complex supercomputer 10,000 years to solve. You wouldn't believe how fast this quantum computer solved it in 200 seconds. So, we are now in a new era. According to Moore's law, we will be hitting the singularity, the technological singularity, by 2045. With Google, with their quantum supremacy, I don't think it will be 25 years. I think it'll be closer. Okay, now, questions, anything, topics. Remember, ask me anything, folks. I'm an open book. I've already told you probably the most dark secret, which was the drug story when I was skydiving 15 years ago. And that's okay, because the only crimes I've ever really committed are possession. So, big fucking deal. That's why I'm an open book. There's nothing I have to hide at that point. If you already know that about me, then there's nothing more that I would need to. I don't need to hide anything, because I don't believe in lying. I'll tell you why, for multiple reasons. First of all, it just makes me feel really shitty. I'm a very terrible liar, and when I lie, it's so obvious that I lied. And then when anyone lies, you have to make a lie to keep up that lie. And then before you know it, you've made up so many lies to cover up that one initial lie, you're going to fuck up and you're going to forget it. But with the truth, you never forget it. So just always stick with the truth. Okay, any callers? Going once, going twice, going 3 times. Any questions? Okay, yeah. Stacy Singer, don't act nervous. Amen. Even if you don't have anything on you, don't act nervous. Now, if you're armed, especially in California, you know, if you're acting nervous and you got a fucking Glock 22 and you're, holstered on you, you bet your ass you're fucked. But just in general, when you actually when you actually just in cops, just be polite, be very open, and by the way, never drive the speed limit. If the speed limit's 35, always drive 40, over 40, under 45. Just enough to where you're barely keeping up with the cops, but not surpassing them, because they will pull you over if you surpass them because they're assholes. They want to be the rules of the road. But if you're under them but going faster than others, you're kind of acting arrogant to the point saying, hey, if you pull me over, I got nothing to hide. That's almost a sure way you'll never get pulled over. Kicking back in OC. Dr. J, is there a way to stop YouTube from demonetizing your videos? Yes! Keep super chatting. That's number 1. Share these fucking videos. And please, whatever you guys do, I need more people in this chat. Now, it's growing at least slowly but steadily, and that is at least one marker I can look at and say, okay, this is at least working. A year and a half ago, when I came back after 2 years off, the average people in my chat were 0 to 2. So now, generally, when I turn on a night that I normally broadcast, minimum there'll be 30 people, usually average 40. Today, because no one really expected me to do it, there's 21 of you now. So that to me shows that things are at least progressing, but they absolutely need to go up significantly higher if you guys enjoy this. If you don't, then just tell me and I'll just do something else. Also, please keep harassing Joe Rogan. Remember, I live 5 miles from this guy. 5 miles from his studio. I also live 5 miles from George Norrie from Coast to Coast. They're both on, technically, Premier, Coast to Coast AM. Premier is the company that owns them, is on Ventura Boulevard in Sherman Oaks. Joe Rogan is not on Ventura Boulevard. He's actually on Canoga. Canoga travels parallel to, say, Balboa, etc. It's perpendicular to Ventura. But he is about a quarter mile north of Ventura. One is southeast from me, that's Coast to Coast. One is southwest from me, that's Joe Rogan. I can literally walk to either studio, and I have, just for fun with, friend or myself, and I'll be there within an hour. If I drive, I'll be there within 5 minutes or less. So, okay, what else you guys got? And because I mentioned the coke and the morphine in a time that I didn't have a prescription for it, I probably will take this video down in case the bar, because unless I take the bar exam, considering I have 6 of the 7 requirements complete. And by the way, if you're asking why I've never taken the bar exam, it's because I lost my ability to type after that coma incident, which kind of really fucked me up, because after that incident, when I lost my ability to type, as I was studying for the bar exam, leading into that fucking bad surgery that ended up in a coma, I was studying for it and I was taking practice exams. After the coma, when I lost my ability to type in my left hand, since it's a long story there, but it's just so you know, it's crippled, I had to try to use like Siri or whatever speech recognition software that I could use to take the bar. So I knew a friend who was actually working for People's Court, here in Hollywood, and he would line up all the cases for Harvey Levin to talk about, as well as what cases they would deal there. He worked for Fleming's Fundamental Law is what they called, FFOL. They're one of the several bar exam courses in California. He was somebody that was to review my answers. Before that coma incident, when I was typing my answers, and I used to type verbatim, up until after when I had to speak my answers. And remember this, all of you know this very well because you're all typing here. When you speak, it's more casual because you're going from straight from your mind instantly into your mouth. But when you type, there's an added layer of security which forces you to slow down and be more succinct and professional. And so what you do when you type is you create the thought in your mind what you're going to type, and rather than blurting it out, you slowly type, or you could type it fast, but either way you're not going to be nearly as fast as you can talk. And unfortunately for me, looking at identical exams, identical questions that were typed versus spoken, they just sounded so casual that there was no way they were going to pass. And because the bar, when you take it, you don't put your name down, you're given an ID number. They have no idea if you're a special needs person, if you're disabled, whatever it is. They don't know. They only know you have a number and that identifies you. So there's no way that the graders would ever know that this test was spoken as opposed to written. That is the only reason I have not taken the California bar. So that kind of fucked me, and it's just life. So what else here we got? Okay, come on, people. I'm doing an Ask Me Anything for the rest of this. So what do you guys want to talk about? Who's been abducted lately? Who's seen a UFO? Oh, hey! I'll tell you what. Okay, here, Lasha, what do you got for me? Yeah, I did get fucked in a serious way. Multiple times. Is it true that I studied sexuality? Absolutely, yes. When I was in Santa Barbara, UCSB, I was a economics major, business economics major. My minor was in sociology and psychology, specifically human sexuality. Santa Barbara, because literally 1 square mile, 95% of the people are between ages 18 to 25. We have more sex per square mile in Santa Barbara, specifically Isla Vista, than anywhere west of the Mississippi. So because of that, UCSB does have the highest rated human sexuality program. When I arrived in Santa Barbara, I had just gone through a serious breakup. I wanted to know what the fuck the woman was thinking. I mean, that famous book, Men Are From Mars, Women Are From Venus, is so true. I wanted to dive deep into the minds of women and know what it was they were thinking. The first course was just a basics course, and everyone on campus wanted to take it. It was actually held in the largest classroom there, where they held concerts. And I even saw Jack Johnson and Ben Harper in the same classroom. 700 people took it. It was called Sociology 152A, and it was the basics. And if you were in the top 20 of that course, you were invited to be in Sociology 152B. Sociology 152B, you obviously had a textbook, but it was, instead of like spending 1 week in anatomy, 1 week on attraction, etc., 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 it would really dive into more. So each person was assigned one chapter. They had to read that entire chapter, and all you would do when you had a class with the 20 people is if you were in charge of that chapter, you would need to know everything about it, because you would have to lead the discussion in that class and ask questions of other people for the entire 2 hours. After that, a handful of people were selected to work directly with the professors on a website. Ironically, that website was also used by Dr. Drew. So people who emailed questions to Dr. Drew landed in Santa Barbara, and I was fortunate enough to be pulled into 152C, which was directed study. Directed study meant that we were sexologists. We would not be, we would never sign our names. You would just sign sexologist. And so I'd get some of the most bizarre questions. I mean, like, here, I'll give you an example of one that I got. Oh, by the way, if you're curious on the number one question I've ever gotten, and it was just literally a cut and paste after over and over and over again. It was usually like a 15-year-old girl, 14-year-old. I had sex with my boyfriend and he pulled out. Am I pregnant? Can I be pregnant? Yes! The answer is fucking yes. Precum contains active sperm. This is one of the questions that was really kind of crazy. Okay, a 21-year-old's mother was fucking wait, a 21-year-old kid was fucking his mother's best friend, who happened to be the mother of his best friend. Got it? So the mother is best friends with that mother, and the 21-year-old is best friends with that. She was married, and she was having this relationship with the 21-year-old, and she wanted to know how to go about it. I literally had to write to her everything from, like, make sure you're not wet when your husband comes home, because he's going to wonder why you're aroused. Fucking take a shower, get dry, and get all the cum out of you. You do not want to be caught with that. You better shower, too, because you do not want to smell like men's cologne. Do whatever you need to do to be completely clean by the time your husband's home, and make sure you have the sexual appetite to take care of your husband, because he's going to suspect something. I said, on the flip side, however, a 21-year-old coming of age in their prime of their sex life, don't you think they're going to brag that they're fucking their best friend's mom? Yeah, they are. And so I had to explain all of that. I had to tell her how to cheat on her husband with someone less than half her age. And I also had to tell her the consequences of getting caught. That was probably one of the ones that I will never forget. But you could see my work. You would have to limit it to the years of 2001 to 2004. I could probably drop you the link sometime, and then all you would have to do is just search for, because I handled every question. Because after 152C, it was just pure directed study that, the professors gave me units, and I literally answered only to them. And I was the only student at that point, and I stayed with them every quarter. We were at the quarter system in Santa Barbara. So yes, I did study human sexuality, and I know a lot about it. I've been a counselor for relationships, for decades at this point. Okay, there's another question here. Let me get to it. Lasha, okay, can you get Dr. Ruth on this show? You know what? It's great you said that, because Dr. Ruth would occasionally come in and speak to us, because my professors, they are no longer there because they're old. They were the Baldwins. It was a couple. It was a married couple that would teach these courses. Yeah, she used to come in there at least every 3-4 months just to chat with them because of her syndicated radio show, essentially on the same topic. Okay, what else here? Is she still alive? I believe so. I know she's been off radio for saying something offensive to people back from like 14, 15 years ago, something around, maybe 13, around that time. But I believe she should still be alive. I don't know any differently. If she is gone, then hey, I've been unaware, and thank you for letting me know. Okay, what else you guys got? I don't have any backup music here to play unless I just play all the guests who say, I'm so-and-so and you're listening to Dr. J Radio Live. And I really wish I some cricket sounds, because I think this calls for some cricket sounds. Okay, waiting for another question or any call. Anybody? And hey, any more super chats? Mandela Effect. Hey, speaking of Mandela Effect, Stacy, I really wanted to do a show on that, but I cannot find the person that is literally qualified enough to talk about it. Now, I know some of the scenarios talked about in the Mandela Effect. Now, you get this. You guys are going to get a kick out of this. The one that mentions with Darth Vader or Star Wars, I can't answer that question because I have never seen Star Wars. Can you believe that? I've been obsessed with UFOs since I was 2, at least, minimum. And obviously I started actively looking for them after I saw a disc and started reading everything I could and watching everything I could. But I've never seen fucking Star Wars. Not the new ones, not the old ones, not... And even recently, I got Disney Plus, and yet I still have yet to watch any of them. Maybe I won't ever, because that way I could say I never have. What else do you guys got here for me? Oh, let me say this because I've been accused of this by Jimmy Church years ago, and I want to set the record straight. When Jimmy Church got fired from Dark Matter Radio, and he went off to basically at the time he was nowhere. He was just it was before he didn't know how to stream on YouTube at the time when I was then. We're going back to 2004, end of 2004, beginning of 2005, and I decided to stay on that network I was on. That's when I got a cold call to work for Art Bell. Jimmy Church had the fucking audacity to accuse me that I was starstruck. Well, let me make something clear first here for all of you to know. One, I never heard Art Bell's voice. I've never heard his show. To this day, I've never heard any of his shows, not once, even when I was producing his shows. I knew so little about the guy. The only thing I knew is that I read an article in UFO Magazine where it was the article from John Lear, and where John Lear gave the possible presidential... Yeah, Jimmy Church has the largest ego, and he's a fucking asshole. He embarrassed me multiple times in front of people, and although I'm a Christian, and I also do, aside from the atheism part in, the modern day of Church of Satanism, not as far as, devil worshipping, but the modern day Church of Satanism from Anton LaVey, I do adhere to those principles. So if you go with the 10 Commandments and you take the Satanic Tenements, like don't hurt someone, essentially like that, because I'm not atheist, I don't obviously take that as a religion, but I do cherry pick the philosophical points and add them to my religion because they will make you a better person. But anyway, growing up, I was at a school play when I was a kid, and my father's cousin is married to Tom Hanks. So I was 6 years old, and Tom Hanks was at my school to watch a school play. When Governor Dukakis was running for president, he held a fundraiser in my uncle's house. So I've been around powerful people all my life. So to accuse me of being starstruck from someone whose voice I didn't even know when he called me is pretty fucking ludicrous. And that's the number one thing I have against Jimmy Church is okay, I'll tell you what it was. So after I got hired by Art Bell, I went to the Conscious Life Expo 2015, and I really hope you guys tell this to Jimmy or just point him to this, because he should apologize, but hey, I'm better than that, and I'll forgive his ego, but I just know he's a motherfucking asshole, and I will never ever give him the time of day. I just have to be better than that and let it go. But we were at a dinner, okay? I had my friends there, Nassim Harriman. I had Sean Stone. I had Nick Pope, Nick Redfern. I mean, the who's who of people. Stanton Friedman. I mean, Dannion Brinkley. All these fucking people were at dinner. Jimmy Church, and it's not even his fucking wife. It's a lie. His girlfriend for a long time, Rita, come up and sit down, and I didn't say anything about Art Bell. I just got fucking hired like a few days before, and to me it was no big deal. I'm like, I don't even know who Art is. All I care is that I still have my show, and when Art Bell comes back, my show's on before his, which means there's no conflict, and I don't have to quit. That's all I cared about. I just wanted to do my show. So he sits down, and he just announces to everybody, I'm Art Bell's producer. Now, mind you, the first number that Art called me from was his home number, so I saved it. I didn't ask him for his cell phone number. I didn't ask him for Aaron's cell phone number. I didn't ask for things like that, because that would come down the line. So Jimmy immediately announces to everybody, hey, look, meet, Art Bell's producer, which I never wanted to live under that name, because if you've noticed that I do my best to try to avoid saying his name, because I never want to live under his name, because Art only hired me because of the success of my own show. And that's why. So it wasn't that I came because of Art Bell and I started doing shows like Heather Wade, who never really belonged in the air according to the Bell family. She wasn't even supposed to host Midnight in the Desert. If you guys are fans of her, then good for you, but just so you know the truth, she was never intended on having Midnight in the Desert according to the Bell family. Anyway, Jimmy immediately starts to taunt me in front of all these people who are really deep friends of mine, much because I started doing this in 2012. Jimmy Church barely started in 2014. I mean, with one show a week with like nobody's essentially, and I had lots of great people at the time. I had Edgar Mitchell, Six Man on the Moon, Story Musgrave. I mean, everybody you can imagine. Linda Moulton Howe, Richard Dolan. These were all my great friends. Oh, by the way, Richard Dolan was one of those people there on that table. Then Jimmy says, do you have his numbers? And I said, no, not all of them. And I could tell Rita got really angry at that point. Then he says, let me give it to you. And this is very embarrassing. Mind you, there's like 8 to 10 friends of mine that are guests around me. And I was just starting to steam. He starts to read a number, and I start to enter it in my phone. Area code, the first 3 numbers of it, right? And Rita got so mad, she slapped his hand and said, cut it out. I walked out of the table, and since I had written the area code and the 3 first numbers into my phone, I called Art and I told him what just happened, and he got pissed for a good reason. And he made sure I had his cell phone. He made sure I had Aaron's cell phone. He made sure I had the studio number. He made sure I had every single number. And guess what? Not one of these had the same fucking area code as Jimmy Church that gave me. What does that mean? Jimmy Church was fucking lying. He purposely wanted to embarrass me in front of all these great people for no reason. So you know what? He can go suck a dick and he could fucking hang himself for all I care. He's a horrible host. He doesn't know what he's doing. All he does is has a big ego. He may have that deep voice, and he's been sucking George Norrie's dick to get on Coast to Coast, but he's just a terrible host. If he was that good, he should be having far, far bigger numbers than he has right now. So that was probably the maddest and most embarrassed I've ever been. Okay, there was another question here. Let me find it. And here, I'm going to tell you something interesting in this life. Okay, Lashas, what was the scariest moment in my life? Well, there's been a few. Unfortunately, being at the wrong place at the wrong time and people misidentifying me for someone else. I've been shot at multiple times. Fortunately, I've never been hit, but I've had enough bullets fired at me intended to kill me that I can go take a date out for the night out, have lobster, whatever. I mean, there's been at least 250 bullets fired at me. The first one being age 15, and as a matter of fact, that bullet that was fired at me missed me and killed the birthday boy at whose house party we were at. I've been shot at in front of my work when I was 17. I mean, it was just a really sad time. Those are probably the scariest moments of my life. Looking down the business end of a shotgun, a Glock, a Beretta, an AK-47, and then hearing bullets whizzing at you whizzing by you intended to hit you with people who don't even know you. You don't even know who the fuck they are. And they just, for some reason, I always thought it was just because they assumed I was somebody else. Because, for so many times in my life in this valley, people said, oh, hey, you look familiar. I'm like, well, I've never been here before, so somebody must look like me. That's the scariest times, multiple times in my life. Now I'm going to tell you something different. Okay, when I was 4 years old, before I tell you this, let me tell you something else that I just found out over the weekend. Now, only you people here that were alive in 1985 and remember in Los Angeles, and if you paid attention to the news, you would definitely know throughout the U.S. and Canada, maybe even the U.K., that we had a serial killer in 1985 in Los Angeles named Richard Ramirez, known as the Night Stalker. I was 5 at the time this motherfucker was killing and raping and robbing people. He killed 14 people, attempted to kill 13 more, and was handed down 14 death sentences, and he died of cancer. So I don't know how the topic of Richard Ramirez came up the other day, but I do remember at the time when my father was out of town and my brother was only 3, we were so scared that because he would target homes that had no lights, that were dark, we literally made sure every door and window was completely locked. At 5 years old, I armed myself to the teeth. I didn't have any guns, but I had a BB gun, I had a switchblade, I had whatever you could think of that. I was always into weapons. I had a butterfly knife, I had ninja stars. I mean, I was ready. If I heard a noise, I was gonna fucking go out there like just stabbing and throwing ninja stars, until I hit somebody. Anyway, recently, over this past weekend particularly, I was just searching about him, and because I know he had hit different places, like where my father's restaurant was. Even though my father was out of town, and to be more secure, we stayed in the middle of the house. Particularly, this was the office at the time, so we weren't in our individual bedrooms at the time. My brother, my mother, and myself. Again, all of us armed, with whatever we had around the house, knives and stuff like that. And I just found out that this motherfucker shot a young couple in the head about half a mile from me. Exactly 4 houses south from a retail location my parents owned, which also, at the time, they owned 2 houses they were renting on that same street. So it took me a lot to search. I found out who the victims were. It was Chris and Virginia Peterson. Chris was 32, Virginia was 26. And I kept searching. I called multiple police stations and said, because retail values drop significantly if someone was killed in a home, I wanted to know. I was, no one had the answer, especially since the cops were so young. It took me hours of searching the names of the victims and the city of Northridge, etc., 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 and I finally came upon, this is the stupidest thing, I don't know why the more morbid people would host a Richard Ramirez Night Stalker tour, visiting every home that he killed someone in. And I came across the Google Maps, and it had hazard signs all around LA County and beyond, all the way to San Francisco, down to San Diego, etc., of each house and the date that he hit it. When I looked at where my house was, there was a fucking hazard sign. Like, I'm not kidding you. When I using an iPhone, you have to see, I'm sure you all know how to use a smartphone, to spread, to make the screen larger, to expand it. I was so shocked at how close this was. And I asked my family, I said, how the fuck did you not know, considering we were watching the news every single night, that the Night Stalker had shot 2 fucking people in the head? The only good thing about this is they survived. They're still there. And that's an interesting fact. Okay, and here's an interesting thing that was a little scary but paranormal that I don't think I've ever told you folks. When I was 4 years old, Oh, have I interviewed a serial killer on air? Actually, Lasha, it's ironic you said that. I just reached out to a murderer and a cannibal named Nico Klautz in Paris. He's available for interviews because he's out of prison. So get this: killing someone and eating them in Paris, France, gives you a 1-year prison sentence? Are you joking? Are you shitting me? Like, what the fuck is wrong with that country to have such lenient laws, considering this person is still a cannibal? He's a mortician and still fucking munches on the bodies of the people that he's working on. Anyway, so it's not necessarily a serial killer, but he's a cannibal. Because most serial killers, if they're not dead, they're in prison. And the only person that I am communicating with in prison is Ted Kaczynski, because he's the smartest person on the planet, and I would really like to get an interview with him. And because he only gets one phone call a month for 10 minutes, it would literally have to be because he also calls his brother. I would have to make sure I'm the person he calls that month, and I would need to record multiple times to at least get, say, 30 minutes an hour. So, but I will work on Nico Klautz. Back to this paranormal story. I was 4 years old, and I don't know what woke me up at the time. And I noticed there was a weird blue light emanating, like very like neon blue, very, very bright in this dark bedroom I was sleeping in when I was 4. Actually, I think, I was 4 because I hadn't moved yet. And it was on the wall. It was let's see, it was like an oval shaped, right? Like a portrait of a head, but it was just completely blue. I assumed the light was coming from outside. So I put my hand up about 3 inches in front of the light to make sure that I could, block the light coming from outside. And guess what? This fucking light was emanating from my wall. Why I woke up in the middle of the night, why that thing was there, I don't know. That's why I don't recall ever even seeing an alien outside of Google or YouTube. I've never met an alien, but I wouldn't be surprised, because I have a super, super obsession with ETs since I was, essentially born, that I wouldn't be surprised if there exists maybe some sort of contact that I don't know, or that it happened some point in my previous ancestors and it's stored in my DNA. Because clearly something has to happen to create not an interest, but such an obsession to the point that I really didn't care about other things, because I just wanted to read about ETs, watch every documentary. And I did a magazine article where I was interviewed recently, and I, told that story of when I was in Sunday school, and I just blurted out that Jesus was a hybrid, and Archangel Gabriel was an ET, and the star, the bright star that 3 kings were following, was a UFO. And I don't know how I know that, but I just felt like I knew that without a doubt. So I don't know why that's what's causing that, but to my knowledge, no, I've never been taken or even seen an 18 person. Okay. Let's see what else I got here. Do you think aliens had anything to do with saving your life in the accident for not getting shot? I don't think so. I just think it was just sheer luck of mine, and also because I ran. The first time, this is really sad. I'll tell you an interesting story. When I was 3 years old, I didn't know English yet. My parents put me in a pre-K, and I only knew Greek. And I remember I picked up a book, a pre-K book, and I obviously couldn't read anything, and just looking at the pictures. Well, of all people to come sit down was a black kid. He literally grabbed a book and, tried to explain to me that there was a B in there. And he was like, B, C, B, B, Z. So my very first memories of interacting with another person was a black kid. Nice as hell. Fast forward to when I was 16 years old, and there was an Asian gang that was, prominent in my neighborhood. And one of the prominent leaders in that gang was a black guy named Kefren. He's in prison, fortunately, now for murder, but he stayed the night at my house one night, and I had gone shooting a few years before, so I still had boxes of 22 caliber bullets. He'd gotten a 22 off the street, and he asked if I could give him the bullets. I said, why not? It was not even 5 days later that, over a stupid reason, when Asians fight, by the way, Asian gangs, they're fucking pussies. They don't fight one-on-one. They'll take all of them and just beat you down. And they lured me over to the house under auspices of one thing, and only just to beat the shit out of me, 30 of them. If it wasn't for the parents coming out to stop the commotion and literally grab the hair and the ear of the kid whose house it was and yank him up, and my friend, what an asshole, he knew the moment I got hit in the face and went down that, it was trouble. So he fucking runs to the car and starts driving away. Well, I crawled underneath or between the legs of those parents who came to the sliding door to get to the backyard to get out the front. And I'm screaming at my friend to stop so I can jump in the car. He had a 95 Mustang convertible, so I just was able to jump in. I look behind me, Kefren and these other Asians are running at me, and they're fucking unloading their clips at me. And the bullets that I'd given this guy 5 days before were the same bullets that were fired at me. That was the first time I was shot at. The second one, as I mentioned earlier, I was at a birthday party, and a fight broke out. Someone shot at me for whatever reason, and they ended up missing me and killing the birthday boy. So I unfortunately got to see murder at a young age, and that's probably why I'm so sensitive to people, because I just don't believe in any harm to anyone. It's just not right. Okay, let's see what else. What was the happiest time of my life? Oh God, there's a lot. I'm a hopeless romantic, so each of the girls I truly loved, those were happiest times. Skydiving, every single jump was by far the happiest because I'm an adrenaline junkie. The period of time when I was by far the happiest, let me smoke here, was between the ages of 21 and 24 when I was in Santa Barbara. I not only did super well in school, but it wasn't just because I was a bright kid. It was because I truly enjoyed it. I was one of those, even I didn't join a frat. I was too old. I came in there, transferred out of junior college. I really loved the college experience. I mean, the beautiful women that were all over Santa Barbara. I mean, the typical, blonde bimbo. I mean, like dumb as hell, but like smoking hot that you think of Santa Barbara that's out there tanning and ditching class. I mean, like full of honeys. And so the combination of the friends I had, a friend I came up there with, and the fun that I had. I mean, it was just a non-stop party every single day. Every single day, we played frisbee golf every day. Me and two friends had a pact that every day we would meet at, it was called the Point, the surf point, and it was like it was a cliff overlooking where the surfers were down there, about 40 feet below, and there was a bench in the middle of nowhere. And we all met every single day at sunset to smoke a joint. So that 3 years of my life was by far better than, say, the next 16 years of my life. So that was the happiest period of my life. Okay, what else do I have here? Okay. Have I ever been to Delphi? Oh, fuck yeah. I've been all over Greece. Delphi is a magical place, and it's not just Delphi. There's a lot of great places. If you go, make sure you go to Sparta. You'll see a giant statue of King Leonidas, and underneath it says Molon Lavet. Molon Lavet is it's ancient Greek. And when the 300 Spartans were fighting at Thermopylae, which translates into hot gates, and basically it was a choke point. That's why they chose that, because if they could secure that tiny little area It didn't matter how many hundreds of thousands of Persians would come there. If they couldn't get through those 300 soldiers, they were decimated. It didn't matter. And so when the Persians came there with their, I think it was like 200,000, and estimates are up to over a million soldiers to defeat it. And by the way, when you to think of the logistics and all that stuff, do you know it took 10 years of marching for King Xerxes of Persia to get to Sparta? And the only reason why they lost that war is because a Greek trader told them how to get to around the pass, and the last day of the fighting, that the Persians surrounded both sides of the Spartans. But two great things that King Leonidas said to Xerxes. I don't know what it was that King Xerxes said this to cause this response from King Leonidas, but King Leonidas essentially responded "Molon lave," which means "come and get it." I love that phrase, "come and fucking get it." As a matter of fact, not too long ago, when the Turks, as you know, there's been an ongoing feud of Turks, and Turkeys, and they're very nasty fucking people. Muslims are very, very nasty people. In the 60s, when my father was in the army, just because they're Muslim and they hate Christians, they went to an island of monks, peaceful monks that were just being kind people. Beheaded every single one of them because they were Christian. That's how fucking horrible Muslims can be. So that's why I have an affinity against them, because of how horrible they can be. And then also there was the 100-Year War, which ended right before World War I. And think about that. That's like 4 generations of fighting. You're born into a war, you die, and the war is still going on. And it was, Greece versus Turkey. And then, of course, you might also know that it took in the ancient Greek, not Neolithic Greek era, but ancient Greek, which is like 2,000-3,000 BC or 500 BC, essentially, that Greece burned Troy down 7 times. That's right, 7 times. So another thing that King Xerxes said to King Leonidas was, "We are going to fire so many arrows at you that the night will turn into day." And King Leonidas' response was, "Good, then we'll fight in the shade." So I love those two. So if you go to Greece, check out Sparta. By all means, you want to check out Delphi, and you have to go to the Acropolis. Okay, what else I have here? Who would you most like to interview but haven't been able to yet? Easy, the Unabomber, Ted Kaczynski, the smartest person on the planet. I would really love to interview him, because everybody involving UFOs and ghosts, if you look through my archives, I've already interviewed them all. There's really not much people left to interview, unless I recycle people, and then I look at people that I are just now making the ways of this through the circuits of speaking, and those people. But all the old school ufologists, I've interviewed them all, and the ghost people essentially. So there isn't that many left, really. But yeah, the one person that I really would kill to interview, not kill, I would never ever hurt someone in any way physically, is Dr. Theodore Kaczynski, because he is a genius. He is truly a genius. What else here? Have I gotten over being sick with a full recovery yet? Yes. However, remember, unfortunately, with my condition, I am never fully recovered, because I have autoimmune recurring pneumonia, which means I am bound to get hit again very soon, like I've been for the last 6 years, unfortunately. And there's nothing I could do to change it. And as you guys all know, death smiles at us all. I've done enough in my life where if I had to die tonight, I'd be okay. I'd be happy. Sure, there's a lot more I'd love to do, but if it was my last day, I'd honestly say, you know what, I've had an alright life. I'm not wealthy, I've never been wealthy, but that doesn't mean I didn't have a rich life. I didn't have loving family and loving friends and loving girlfriends and really good times in my life, and accomplished enough to where I could feel complete. However, I'm only 40, so if I can make it to 100 and skydive several 500 more times, or at least 350 more times, 372 particularly, so I can get my D license, so I can be an instructor. There's this other goals, obviously, I still have. So yeah, what else? Anybody else? What else you guys got? All right, I lit the cigarette. When the cigarette's over, I will probably end this, unless you guys can think of anything else you want to ask me. And remember, I dropped that phone number if you guys want to call. But if you do call, please keep it quick. Keep it to one question, thought, or story. That way, if someone else calls, then cool. But I guess no takers for tonight. And hey, kicking back in OC, thank you again. Yeah, Thermopylae. Hey, you wrote that perfectly. That's exactly how you spell it. Thank you so much for that super chat. Any super chat, folks. If you could just skip your Starbucks for the day each time I do a show and just donate just that amount, or 10 or 20 or 50 or 100 or 1,000, whatever it could be, it all helps. That, because YouTube takes half the money out of that 20 super chat, I will get approximately 10. But because I was $2 above losing my monetization, that at least will carry me over till tomorrow. Am I going to Contact in the Desert this year, next round? I stopped going to Contact in the Desert because the lady who puts them on, Victoria Givon, she asked me in 2015 if I can get her Art Bell. And Art doesn't like to leave his, before he passed away, he didn't like to leave his home. And so, and this was, he obviously wanted more promotion. And so, I asked him if he'd be willing to appear on Skype audio. And he says, Skype audio? Why don't I just do Skype video? I even saved the screenshots of what they made on their website promoting Art Bell. And then one day they pull the plug. Why? Probably because of George Noory and Jimmy Church. They threatened to pull out of Contact in the Desert over that. And because I got sick after that for 2 years, I have stopped going there because I don't get along with Victoria anymore, because I went on a radio show after that and essentially threw her under the bus by telling the true story, that she begged me. I even posted the text messages from her begging to get Art Bell. And then her excuse of why she had to cancel was a bullshit excuse. We don't have the technical gear. I said, technical gear? I have a fucking iPhone. Give me a microphone. I'll put this guy on speaker. There you go. Done. No, wasn't good enough. So she begged for Art Bell. I got her Art Bell. They built the website. George Noory, Jimmy Church threatened to pull out, and that was the last time I've ever been to Contact in the Desert. And you know what? Fuck them. I don't think I'll ever go again. Not that I hold things personally. Of course, I would forgive her, but she wouldn't give me the passes that I went. And to tell you the truth, I don't really want to face Jimmy Church because I'm tired of him embarrassing me. You know, every time I've seen him, he's always embarrassed me for whatever. Why not become a MUFON field investigator? I had originally thought I would do that. But Lou, you are the one. So you're going to get me the sports model, and we're going to fly in that fucking thing. Bob Lazar. That's another person I like to interview, but he doesn't give interviews, so I doubt I'll ever get to tell him. Okay, what else? Yeah, see, Lou, you were there. You were fucking there the last time I was at Contact in the Desert. You were there when I called Art Bell, when I was, hanging out where the videos were being sold. And there was about 50 people, and I put him on speaker and let everyone talk to him, which is the closest I got to, getting him there. Okay, what else? What New Year's do you have about the show website in the future? Story blocks. Pam, I need your help too. And Lasha already knows this. And anyone else who can edit video, I need it. Need your help, because what I've decided to do, since it's not working out, is we're going to keep the live streams going for as long as it be. That way we can get the super chats and have fun with all you guys folks. Because if you weren't in the chat, I probably would have stopped a long time ago. So it means a lot to me that you guys are here. So I'll keep the shows full length, and then as soon as the show's over, I'm going to remove the entire thing and make it audio only, upload it to my website, and charge a subscription fee so you guys can hear them at your own, whenever you want. And then Pam, which you haven't heard about this yet, and Lasha knows, I will, because I got essentially got a subscription to royalty-free videos. I mean, they have everything you need. Basically, Ancient Aliens, Gaiam TV use this very same program. They interview someone and then they show you imagery. All this imagery comes from Storyblocks. I'm going to take a 2-hour show, strip it of its opening and its closing, start with a question that I am going to ask, and then only let it play for 7 to 15 minutes maximum with the guest talking about that one topic alone. And that will no longer be a slideshow or just audio. That's going to be a fully produced mini videos, because even though fortunately on my channel the average view time from everybody is about 24 minutes, universally YouTube, people don't like to watch videos over 10 minutes. Think about it. It just makes sense. You know, if you want to just see something real quick, you'll watch something for 7 minutes or 10 minutes or 15. So that is what's coming in 2020. More archives online, and the only things that'll be left on YouTube are 10 or 7 to 15 minute clips of fully produced videos with going back to every single interview I've ever done and every interview coming to the future. So that should make a considerable difference as far as revenue, because I have to get to that break-even point. Otherwise, I just got to pull the plug. Okay, anything else here, folks? Last one. Yeah, see? Slash, you know, Storyblocks. Lou, yes, you do remember well. Thank you. Hey, folks. Lou is a great guy, and I'm glad he's here in the chat. Initially, before I lost my left hand and the ability to type, because he's a lawyer from Pennsylvania, we were planning on starting a firm together, but well, that didn't go so well. So when will training start? Oh, well, that's a question for Lou. Lou can answer that. When will training start for your MUFON field investigator? And remember, Lou, I want to see that fucking S4 flying S4 sports model. That, when I take a ride in that out of the atmosphere and fly around the moon and maybe Mars and whatever else, and maybe go back in time and see the signing of the Declaration of Independence and watch, historical events like from ancient Greece to Jesus Christ being born, and I mean, as sad as it'll be, I would be interested in going to see him when he's on the cross, but I know it'll be sad. So this month, okay, cool. Website changes. Well, I don't like the new website because my webmaster has literally not only copied my site completely and made it into his own, meaning that his domain now has a spitting image of my site. He's now also embedded my site to send people to his site, which is a fucking stab in the back in the worst kind of way. I'm going to revert to another person, and I'm going to probably revive the old site, because naturally I had good SEO without ever hiring a good web person. And the reason is because I have so many diverse topics on the show, whether you talk about crime, all the federal agencies I've had, UFOs, Satanism, Christianity, Egyptology, time travel, whatever it be. My website was the first that would usually come up, and so that's why I'd like to revert it back to the old site. Was Zuckermaster my webmaster? Zuckerberg. No, he was not. However, you want to hear something interesting? Zuckerberg decided he wants to become fucking president. Well, once he realized it's not feasible, because he's, not a social person, he decided to pick Pete Buttigieg and give him 2 Facebook scientists to work on his campaign, aside from donating God knows how much money. And this is going to give him such a huge bump as far as social media that it's kind of scary, because Zuckerberg is trying to buy the fucking election, just like Bloomberg. Trump is going to win in a landslide. So much so, Michael Moore has even admitted that recently. Yeah, Michael Moore, that's right. Trump will not be impeached like the bullshit leftists are saying. Rachel Maddow, I can't stand that fucking cunt. Trump is impeached. Trump is impeached. Fuck you. Trump is not impeached. The House sets articles of impeachment. That does not mean he's impeached. The Senate holds the trial to decide if a president will be impeached or will be acquitted. Well, guess what? Mitch McConnell has already been working with the White House, said he will acquit. And by the way, it didn't matter if hypothetically, say, the left controlled the Senate. They still couldn't get 2/3 majority to impeach the president. So, what's going to happen? The left are going to lose, and they're all going to be sucking their own dicks and wondering how they got fucked in the ass as Trump wins in a landslide. I'm talking about a Ronald Reagan landslide. And you know what? They're not counting people like me and my friends who are so gung-ho conservative, GOP Trumpers like that live in super leftist states like California, that people like me, my family, my friends, all are going to contribute to his popular vote. So unlike 2016 when he won the Electoral College but lost the popular vote, I really think this time not only will he win the Electoral College in a landslide, he probably might take the popular vote. Because right now, Trump's ratings are higher than Abraham Lincoln. That's right. That's not a question of opinion. That's fact. The only person that Donald Trump needs to beat to become the greatest president of all time is George Washington. That's it. My webmaster is Tom right now. Not going to be for long. Okay, what else? What do I think about the war in Iran? Well, that guy, Soleimani, was killed. He's killed hundreds of Americans. And being in Baghdad and obviously helping the militia try to destroy the U.S. Embassy, I think it was proper of President Trump to have a preemptive strike. And more importantly, the left, I swear to God, I'm actually temporarily blocked or suspended on Twitter because I told Pelosi that God will judge her and shame on her. And I was a little more graphic than that, but that's what I said, because idiots like her and Warren and fucking Schumer say, well, we weren't made aware of this. We demand an investigation. Well, fuck you, idiots. Guess what? Obama killed Osama bin Laden without ever asking anybody. What do you think the commander-in-chief is supposed to do? And just in case you guys forget history, by the way, there's only the last time we have ever been officially in war, meaning Congress has declared a war, was World War II. So, Korea, Vietnam, Balkans, Panama, everything since 1945 has been at only the commander-in-chief. Lars Saturn, God bless you and thank you for that super chat. So yeah, and by the way, now that Iran is going to retaliate, Trump has identified 52 targets. The reason why 52, it has something to do with 52 Americans that were killed. So he's going to destroy one target for each American that was killed. And I think that's brilliant because, Iran right now, because of the economic sanctions is already crippled. And I think it'd be a great idea if Trump just had another drone attack and just killed that number 2 before he even spoke anything. I think it'd be great to take out the Ayatollah, but I think there's a reason why he doesn't want to hit any targets there, considering that Russia has a hypersonic weapon. And if you don't know what that is, by the way, that fucking thing goes Mach 10. That's 2 miles a second. And that means essentially, for the first time, the second world, and by the way, the real definition of first world, second world, third world is first world is US and its allies. Second world is Russia and their allies. Third world is neither Russia, neither America, it's others thing. Alex Olin, thank you for your super chat. Wow, we're finally making some headway. I'm so happy. You guys are saving me from demonetization. Yeah, there you go. Thank you, Lou. You just made that even. You explained it even better than I could. Yes, the 52 hostages in the 79 and 80. Remember, this lasted for over 400 days when Iran overtook the embassy and held those hostages literally until the wee hours of the night before the inauguration of Ronald Reagan, and Carter was still negotiating until that morning when Ronald Reagan was inaugurated. Then they were released. So yeah, I think we do have to be careful about going to war, but I think President Trump did exactly what he should be doing as president. After all, he's commander-in-chief. Americans have entrusted him to be commander-in-chief. And whether you guys like him or not, he is truly loved. I mean, look at his rallies. And by the way, he's a fucking god. Anybody who could say bullshit in front of 50 to 100,000 people and get applauded 3, 4, 5 times over is a god. He's not a man anymore. He's got a godlike status. And one thing I love about him, unlike Barack Obama, he speaks from the heart. Very rarely do you actually see him reading from a teleprompter or his notes. He's generally speaking from his heart, which the last time I knew of a president that did so was Ronald Reagan. Ronald Reagan was also one who demanded that he wrote his own speeches. So that's why I'm pretty damn sure Donald Trump will win. And I'm happy to be living in this time because the U.S. has been so fucked up. We're a republic, folks. Remember that, which means that we're supposed to have a small federal government and a lot of individual rights. The left, by the way, who are the slaveholders, which I don't understand why blacks vote for Democrats, which they're not Democrats, they're Dems. Why would you vote for the party that kept you in slavery? Abraham Lincoln was the first Republican. He's the one that ended slavery. It was Republicans that ended slavery. If you're a minority, wouldn't you want to be on the side of the people that saved your ancestors? I don't understand why. So when I meet people that are blacks for Trump and Hispanics for Trump, women for Trump, I'm just so happy that people are waking up. And I gotta say this, in 2016 when I voted, I wore my Make America Great Again hat and my Fuck Hillary t-shirt, and on the back it said lock her up. And I got a lot of like mean looking, eyes, and I got the finger, and a few people said some shit coming out of the polls. However, in 2018 in the midterms, when I wore my MAGA hat and a similar shirt, which wasn't against Hillary but was against the Democrats, Dems, I hate to call them Democrats because they don't even use a democracy anymore. They're all socialists, Marxists, communists now. Ironically, everybody that voted and everybody that saw me coming out smiled, and many of them nodded at me, which shows me that at least in my neighborhood, people have really realized that Trump has done more than any president that I know of. I mean, just look what he's done from Dow Jones, immigration, veterans. And he's done more than any other president. He's the only president that I know of who made promises and actually kept them. And for those idiots who are supporting Joe Biden, why the fuck would you put a loser who was in politics for 50 fucking years, fucked our country up more, and you're going to give it back to that asshole? That pedophile? Why? Why would you? And if you're wondering why I would call him a pedophile, there's a video of a hot mic in the Oval. He is confirming a congressman who's there with his wife and his 13-year-old daughter. After the photograph, Biden, Sleepy Joe Biden, leans over into this girl's ear and says, I never get a hard on as much as I do when I'm standing next to a 13-year-old girl. Then he follows this up by says, talk to my daughter Ashley about the movie. Then he says louder to the family, to the parents, I'll see you at my house after, right? Boom. Guy's a fucking pedophile, caught on a hot mic. You can't argue that. Okay, what else we got here? Lincoln was considered a liberal. He may have been considered a liberal, but he was a Republican. And he was the first Republican, just so you know that. And no, he was actually, he may have been considered a liberal conservative, but he was a conservative. Yeah, Biden is very creepy. Fuck. Yeah, I agree. Don't hesitate to write out fuck. No one's seeing this but me and you guys. So if it wasn't for Joe Rogan cussing on his show, then I probably wouldn't have been able to do the same. So I'm so happy I get to exercise my First Amendment, because in the last 8 years, 6.5, 7 years of my show, it was a very clean show. I kept it as professional as can be, but it's kind of cooler. I think it just makes me more willing to talk about anything if I'm not restricted about cursing. Because sure, of course I have a potty mouth, but you know what? I'm fucking 40. I'm not 25 anymore. I'm not walking in courts and, talking to judges and mediating with people anymore. I've already paid my homage to society as far as, being professional and clean. It's time where I'm going to speak with no filter because I can. We live in a free country. Let us exercise our free rights. That's the way I put it. Okay, anything else, folks, before I end this stream today? Well, I told you a lot. I told you how to get out of a speeding ticket. I told you the story about how I avoided a DUI. I told you why I hate Jimmy Church, but I'm willing to forgive him as long as he recognizes what he's done. I told you why I won't be at Contact in the Desert anymore. Oh, Alan. Hey, aloha. Alan, thank you. Alan Nakamura, by the way, folks. Remember him. He is my first Patreon patron, and he's been supporting this show for as long as I can remember. So, Alan, thank you so much for being here. What else? I answered your questions, and I think, well, that may be said. Well, maybe if you guys have nothing else, then maybe we should end. Again, any more questions? Going once, going twice, going 3 times. All right. Well, then tomorrow I'll be here literally at this time. I'll be ending about 24 hours and 20 minutes from now. It's a 2-hour show with the Secret Service, former Secret Service agent John Carmen. And so feel free to ask him whatever you want and tell everybody you can about it. Spread the word, and let's make it historical. Let's make 2020 a historical year. Let's make it a game changer. And remember, Justin, if you're out there, we're going to jump. And anybody here who is a skydiver or is at least willing to jump, let me know, because in 3 months' time, I will be in the air again. That is a promise to myself, and now that I vocalize that promise, you all can keep me to it. The only thing, knock on wood, that would prevent me is if I'm sick at the time, and each time I get sick, how far it pushes me back. Okay? One more thing here. Are we going to do more than 3 days in 2020? The reason I don't do Wednesdays is because Linda Moulton Howe has about 3.7 thousand people in her chat, and I barely have, 19? I don't want to be on when she's on. Fridays, unfortunately, 3 out of 4 Fridays, I'm at a doctor's appointment. I may add Fridays, and if I do Wednesdays, I'd have to end before Linda comes on. That's the only reason I don't do Wednesdays. So that's why, for you to know, Pam, and for everybody. All right. Okay. With that being said, I was able. I got this. Thankfully, I was able to get this in because I promised you a couple months ago that I would do something specific to tell you how to get out of your ticket. So use that knowledge. Make sure you never admit anything to a cop. Remember, they are the absolute rulers of the street. They will fucking put you in jail, throw away the key, make your friends and family pay the bail, or throw you in Gen Pop for you to beat the biggest motherfucker up to gain respect until you're brought to your arraignment, and then you'll be out. But if you stay polite, never admit anything, then you should cruise the streets properly. Okay? All right, folks. Well, God bless you all. Thank you for being here. Thank you all for those of you who are super chatting. And remember, folks, anybody who is a skilled video editor, please, please, please contact Pam Vrettenberg. She runs my social media. She will get a hold of me. She will text me your message or copy and paste it. One way or another, she always passes messages to me because I don't check my social media or my emails because there's about 60,000 unread emails that racked up over the years that I got sick. So that's the only reasons why. Otherwise, the only other ways to get a hold of me are through my phones and texts. But Pam does a very brilliant job in social media, and she will always make sure she responds to you, and she will keep me posted if someone has a specific message for me or a guest request. All right? With that being said, folks, the only email I personally do check is not my Gmail account, not drjradiolive at Gmail. It's drj at drjradiolive.com. But again, please, I prefer if you just contact Pam and she will copy and text me that message or Skype it to me, because it's just so much easier that way because my time is so limited. I have a uncle who's undergoing chemo because he's got leukemia. I have a father who's essentially on his deathbed, and then I have me who's just a mess, a medical fucking mess. So to make things easier, Pam handles it. And Lasha, thank you for your help too. And remember, folks, we're going to make this a game changer with story blocks. All right. With that being said, God bless you all. I'll see you tomorrow. Be safe, stay warm, and blue skies.